Y'all hang out with me this morning while I fix my coffee. So there's a lot of conversation centering around how the culture of the workforce is essentially changing. And people point to millennials a lot, and I think that that is a fair assessment because we do make up the biggest group within the workforce, but we are not the majority. I want to talk about what I mean by that. So let me expound when I say we are not the majority. When I say we are not the majority, I mean that the workforce in its entirety is naturally shifting to where more leadership is of the younger generation, such as millennials and like downward. And that's just attributed to like our natural aging. When I look at the data regarding who, like the boomers that make up the workforce now, I think it's like around 15%. So they're naturally aging out. And what's happening is the millennials and the Gen Zers are naturally moving into that space. And while that is happening, just like anything that naturally progresses, you're going to bring your ideals with you. Now, when I look at over this time of like my life, I was in college. I was in college during the housing recession. So we get out, we have this recession going on. We have this massive student loan debt. We're impacted by layoffs. We're impacted by a lot of things that essentially forced us to have to be adaptable and resilient. So we're naturally bringing the mindset of, if things go left within this role, how can I sustain myself for the next role? We also look at things like differently, like work-life balance. Like overall, millennials have a really good grip on work-life balance. We don't really want to choose between our work and our family. We don't want to choose between our work and the ability to be present for our children or our spouses. We don't want to choose between those two things. And we essentially have forced them to coexist. And I think that that naturally has come from, like I was stating a minute ago, the ability for us to like see how quickly things can be snatched from under us. We're like, well, if my job goes today, I still have my family. If my job goes today, I still have to focus on my physical health or my mental health. So in that, we've naturally prioritized those things and we've brought those things with us. Now, does that make us like entitled? Does that make us anything other than the fact of this is the hand that we were dealt and this is how we've been taught to navigate this space? That's just how we have to live. And I think it's an indication of like survival, especially within corporate America. We have to be like this. And like I stated, when we look at the aging population, like boomers are aging out essentially. So when we look at that and we look behind us to what the direction that Gen Z is going, Gen Z is actually taking it a step further. And they're like, I'm not doing this, or this doesn't make sense. Or they're even more vocal about things that traditionally have been accepted within the workplace and things that millennial kind of moved the needle on, but did not fully push it over the finish line. And I think that Gen Zers are kind of like, man, like, you know what, scratch it, let's just rebuild. So I'm not even mad at how Gen Z is approaching their careers. I'm not mad at it. And I know that there's been a lot of discourse about like them negatively, but as a millennial and someone that sits in both of those spaces, like millennials have visibility to what came before us and what's coming after us. I honestly see both sides because even when I can take it a step further and say that the world that millennials were raised to exist in, the world that we were taught to prepare for and get ready for doesn't exist. It doesn't exist anymore. We were taught to go to college and, you'll be okay. But in us doing those things, we did nothing but inherited a massive amount of debt. We couldn't get jobs and et cetera, et cetera. So we kind of just pivoted. So the world that we were taught for doesn't exist. And the Generation Z came through and was like, I'm doing what I want to do. And I get it to an extent. I get it. Like, y'all kind of show out sometimes, like, as an auntie perspective, because I have a nephew that's a Gen Z, and I kind of be looking like, but overall, I get it. I understand because I see both sides. But anyway, I know this kind of lengthy. Bye, y'all.